reset. Now, I spoke this morning at a panel, but I just want to say that in March 2020, our entire climate energy debate changed, probably forever within our lifetime. It accelerated a lot of trends. What happened in March of 2020 essentially was the bypassing of democracy for COVID regulations. This is Klaus Schwab, you know him. The pandemic is a rare, narrow window of opportunity to reset our world. He said this in June of 2020, 2 months after COVID lockdowns hit. Every country must participate. You will be transformed. A reset of capitalism. This is coming from the Davos World Economic Forum. These are the intentional collapse of modern society. They're collapsing our free speech rights and currency, along with that central bank digital currency, which I'll talk a little bit about. Our current energy system, which you know all about, is being intentionally collapsed for this net zero utopian vision. Our transportation system is being collapsed. And make no mistake, a mandate for electric cars and banning of gas-powered cars creates car shortages. That's all it can do. A la Cuba, a la East Germany with the old crappy East German Trabant, where you had to be on waiting lists for years. One government-approved car was the Trabant, and that's where it's going to be here with that. So we're going to be like a Mecca with Cuba if we allow this to go through. And the secondary phrase there is, this will happen if we allow it. We can't allow it. Our ability to own home and property intentionally collapsed. Our high-yield agriculture, which I think Patrick Moore and some others are going to be talking about, is being intentionally collapsed to create man-made food shortages. And we'll talk about that, what's going on in the Netherlands. So in I believe this was 1919, the Russian Revolution is going on. The slogan for Vladimir Lenin doing the Tsarist Russia was, the worse the better, worse is better. Now, I've done a lot of interviews in the Great Reset, and they're like, oh, that's just not going to happen. They'll never be able to achieve that vision. And I'm like, it's not really about achieving their utopian vision, whether it's on energy or the ideal number of people. It's about creating a massive amount of chaos, which would then put them in charge of this chaos. We're already seeing calls to nationalize the energy industry because the free market failed to manage energy. Every time there's a blackout, more calls to nationalize it. Once they create a food shortage, we've been warned by Al Gore and the United Nations and people like James Hansen, climate will cause great food disruption. No, the climate policies will cause great food disruption. And so once their policies cause this disruption, the intentional collapse, then they get even more power and do more of the same policies. And that, make no mistake, is how they're going to get us, this chaos and shortages, get you more likely to be open to eating insects as a protein source, more likely to be eating Bill Gates' lab-grown meat, which is different than the Impossible Burger, not the vegetable. I'm talking about lab-grown meat, stem cells from a cow or a calf, grown in a steel vat. COVID climate reset. The next crisis is already waiting for us around the corner. It is the climate crisis, Klaus Schwab. So Richard Lindzen, who's here, I use this in my book for my key climate chapter. I love this quote. It's from Richard Lindzen in 2009. I don't know if he remembers saying it, but it's hard to imagine a better leverage point than CO2 to assume control over a society. If you gain control, you, so to speak, control everything. Well, they imagined it. A fear of a virus that was weaponizing our breath became actually even more powerful than carbon dioxide, and they were able to achieve everything they wanted. It called a flu d'etat. Overnight, we basically became part of the Green New Deal. Everything that ever wanted was implemented immediately. A stop of air travel, school promises of free health care, status quo, ability of people to sit at home without working, receive a paycheck. This was the fantasy that they'd had. This is interesting. Eva de Boer, UN Chief Climate Advisor, 2013, said the only way we can achieve these temperature goals is to shut down the whole economy. Well, gee, that's 7 years before we actually did shut down the whole economy. 2021 demand. Continued lockdown-like emissions. Actual headline, UK Guardian, global lockdown needed every 2 years, needed to meet Paris goals. There you go. It's all we got to do. Just have lockdowns every 2 years, and we can finally solve global warming. Why can't people just go along with it? COVID lockdown helped save the planet. It's not only good for the virus, but it's good for the planet. How can you lock down deniers? So here's what's funny. They'll say, oh, this is a conspiracy. The last Heartland comments, we had the UK reporter here. Climate lockdown is a conspiracy. A Bill Gates, George Soros funded professor in Europe Mariana Mazzucato coined the term climate lockdowns. She said the world may need to resort to lockdowns again, this time to tackle a climate emergency. So they're using it. Their experts that they fund are using that. Under a climate lockdown, limit private vehicle use, ban consumption of red meat, impose extreme energy saving. Biden could declare a climate emergency as soon as this week. This was last summer, and there's now talk for him renewing that in his final term in office. Estimated to give him 130 different powers. Again, this is what they're looking for. They don't need Congress, don't need no stinking democracy. UK-funded report, absolute zero. Same language, urge climate law to stop flying, no new roads, airport closures, stop eating beef, stop doing anything that causes emissions. The last one is chilling, whereas Greg Wrightstone will appreciate this. Regulate carbon dioxide similar to asbestos. Now, we inhale oxygen, we exhale carbon dioxide. So can you imagine we're going to need hazmat suits for everyone in this room if you get near anyone? Journal Nature, COVID lockdowns key to begin personal carbon allowances. Restrictions on individuals unthinkable have us more prepared to accept trafficking and limitation. British Medical Journal calls for meat, dairy price hikes, substantially fewer car journeys, 80% drop in meat consumption. You see where this is going? These are major medical journals now. We're not talking again. We're not talking about, I found some obscure quote from George Monbiot. No, this is the actual power centers of our science, government, corporate, academia. 230 medical journals declared COVID-19 response the template for climate. Well, what does that mean? No democracy, emergency powers, imposing, doing whatever you want a la China. It's very clear about what they're doing. Freedom of movement. Electric vehicles won't save us. We need to get rid of cars completely. You'll go nowhere and be happy. Let's update that. This just happened last month. Biden administration, new strategy to address climate. Don't leave your house. They're looking for more remote work, virtual interactions. Does that sound like a world you want to live in? This is where they're headed with it. Let's see. So the Great Reset should be the Great Resist or the Great Reject. That's how you should talk to your friends. And I just say this has been the time when conspiracy realities have outnumbered conspiracy theories. All of this will only happen if we allow it.